now. It's about that time.
Pre-record on my count. 7, 6, 5, 4. Here we go. Roger.
With the coach, Mickey Clayton on INSiiGHTS. Two eyes in the middle. INSiiGHTS, where we always talk the talk.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of INSiiGHTS Magazine. Typically, I host it by myself, but I've been fortunate enough to convince Rick, the reporter from the Lakeland Ledger, to join us in a special show that we have where we're concerned about the increase in gun violence within our community. And we have a number of our community leaders that are going to be joining us in this special segment as we try to draw attention to all that's going on and perhaps find a way to find some answers for those people to make our community a safer and better place. Welcome, Rick. I appreciate you co-hosting with me. Share your thoughts.
Thanks, Coach. This is very important. I mean, things are getting out of hand, and there must be a way to come together to put the unity back in community, to care about each other's lives, and the way it's going now, we're going down a dark path, and I don't like the way we're going. So hopefully with this think tank that you put together, we can come up with some ideas and some solutions to kind of curb this violence and make this place better than it was.
Okay. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel, and we will, once we get everybody on, we're going to have something by Pastor Elwood from New Mount Zion AME Church. And it's in no particular order, it's just how it popped up in my screen there. We have Dr. Raymond Bryant Jr. I know senior, he attends New Mount Zion Church.
That's correct. That's correct. Good evening. How is everyone?
We're great.
Well,
we appreciate you, Superintendent of Thomasville City Schools. We appreciate you taking the time and opportunity to share some time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Actually, we also have somebody who works there with you. He still has it in quotes, Coach Tillman.
That's right. Yes, glad to be here. And I'm truly interested in hearing the comments and concerns that we have about this particular topic. Not only is happening in Tallahassee, but also in South Georgia as well.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you. And for those who don't remember, he's a legendary coach over at Thomasville High. We've had him numerous games that we covered, and he's also developed into quite a football analyst. Dr. Bryant, I don't know if you know the other Dr. Bryant. She's a little bit well known. I see a new hairstyle, Dr. Bryant. I'm scared of you. She's president, CEO of EW Bryan and Associates. She's extremely involved in the community in a lot of different ways. Dr. Elaine Bryant, we welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Also with us, I don't want to hear anything from you, Ben Tillman, the Q Dog, about another Kappa, but I got my pastor, Pastor Elwood from New Mount Zion AME Church. Pastor Elwood, appreciate you being here.
Thank you all for having me.
Oh, he said, yeah, thank y'all for being here.
Real deep, Coach, real deep.
I see.
Also with us, has been on our show before, Coach Desir, FAMU boys basketball coach, FAMU High. She's been on our show a number of times, and people have asked who is the young lady that speaks so well and so articulate. That's Coach Desir. Thank you, Coach.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on. Excuse my voice. You know, that's what happens when we coach sometimes. We lose our voice. So y'all please excuse the voice.
That's why we do it on Zoom now. So those of you who coming down with these, you can keep them to yourself.
Oh, no. We're not talking about that catching.
Also, we have Sergeant Damon.
Bobby's on his way. And then I think who's working? Chatham and White.
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
I thought you were answering a call. You might have to leave in a rush there. You never can tell with that task.
No, not yet.
Not yet today, huh? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Also with us, we have Earl Hankerson, Ricketts High School instructor, parent, has had some experiences. He's dealing with some of the Ricketts High students, and it was really important for us to be able to try to get some representation from two high schools that we know is has a lot of students involved in this. Also, we have Principal Desmond Cole from Tallahassee Godby High School, one of the legendary schools here in the city. He's always proactive with his students and trying to do things that he thinks will help his student body and to make it a safe environment, healthy environment, and to get them out of high school and be able to be productive and useful parts of the community. Thank you, Principal Cole.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for having me.
Before we go too far, Reverend, we would like for you to open it up with a prayer for us, for the community, and for what we're doing here on our panel. But I know that you have a message that you would like to send. So we would appreciate you starting us off with that.
Well, certainly to all of you that are here tonight, and definitely to you, Coach, thank you for assembling us. I'm impressed with the panel already, and we're just blessed to have this many individuals who care about the community on this panel tonight. Let us pray. God, thank you for the power and joy of leaders in our community, oh God, that care enough to not only have a conversation, oh God, but to put action behind our words. And so, God, we pray tonight that as we move along, that we will continue to keep the community first. God, that you would actually lay your hands on this community, for we actually need a powerful touch from you. We need a revival, oh God, of your presence in the community. It's so much going on that we see and we know about, God. And there are so many different things that we have no clue that's taking place. Sometimes they're in homes, sometimes they're in the mind, sometimes it's in the heart. There are so many different things that each individual is dealing with, and we need your presence in this community. We pray that you will be a part of this panel tonight as well, so that it not just be another time to pontificate about the things happening in the community, that some good strategy and powerful action will follow this conversation. It's in your holy name. Because I am a Christian, I seal this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pastor Elwood, you got that gift. You reach us, we appreciate it. Please don't you say your prayer and leave us, because we need you with us.
Yes, sir.
I have a clip. I'm gonna play this clip, as I've said, to start us off here. Today we have Judge Anthony Miller from the Second Judicial Circuit. And Judge Miller, thank you for taking time to talk to the community and to us today.
Well, thank you, Mickey. It's always a privilege to engage with INSiiGHTS.
Well, we appreciate it. And as you know, you see it every day. Crime is rising. Gun violence is rising. We're all concerned about it. And we know that in your seat, you get a close hand view of it on a daily basis. What words would you have to be able to tell people who don't really follow the law and do things, get themselves in danger? What would you tell them from the judicial aspect of it, from your court seat?
One of the biggest things is, I always tell us young people when I deal with them, is you got to watch the company you keep. You know, there's a proverb that says that bad company corrupts good character. And a lot of individuals Some people are more focused. They want to do bad things, but a lot of times they just kind of get caught up in the wrong crowd, and they start kind of following what the crowd is doing, and it ends up in some very bad situations.
Okay, Judge Miller, what is the process like when they appear in front of you?
Yeah, and types of cases I deal with a lot of family law cases. I deal with cases where children have been abused, neglected, and abandoned, and also deal with some juvenile cases. So in cases where individuals have been caught up in the wrong thing, gotten arrested, sometimes I do first appearance. And that's when the Florida law, the Constitution says that within 24 hours of being arrested, you will appear before a judge who will read you your rights. So at first appearance, the judge is there, you have the state attorney, you have the public defender there, and the stage is set. And so they appear normally from the Leon County Jail. They like to call it detention center, but we still call it the jail, Mickey. So they appear remotely. And so the first thing I would do, I'll introduce myself. I say, I'm Judge Miller. I'm handling today's first appearance. You have the right to remain silent. The first thing I tell them is you have the right to remain silent, because if they start talking, it's being recorded. Anything they say can be used against them. And I advise them that they have the right to an attorney. If they cannot afford one, the court will appoint an attorney to represent them, because I want them to know up front, you have legal rights, regardless of what you've been accused of. You need to know you have some constitutional rights that have to be protected by the court. Now, for a murder case, more likely you're not going to get a bond. You will be in jail for some period of time, a lot of times until you actually have your trial. So the more serious crimes, because those crimes are considered crimes against the state. And so there's an interest in protecting the community and also ensuring that, guaranteeing that the person is going to come to court. So the more serious the crime is, the more likely you will stay at the jail. But let's say, for example, attempted murder, charges like that, more than likely you're probably going to be there at the jail without a bond. Again, it's a threat to the community, and we have to make sure that you're going to actually show up to court. If you're facing very serious charges like attempted murder, even though you are innocent, unless the state proves you're guilty, the state does argue that, do we want somebody with these types of alleged charges in the community, possibly impacting other people in the community?
So you can actually be innocent, but be charged and still lose 2 years of your life because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's a strong possibility. That's why it's so important. You have to watch the company you keep.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of significant there, what he was able to add. And one of the things is that a lot of times people go and they think they can kind of come in and out. Once you get arrested, you might be in there 2 years, 3 years until that court, until it gets resolved. Sergeant Miller, could you share with us a little bit on the investigative task force that you lead, that process and how you go about doing some things? The thing that has actually grabbed us is people who have shared their own individual experiences when they didn't know their son had done some things, and they arrived at the house looking for him. They didn't even know he was in town with weapons drawn. And when we have spoken, when we've done our leadership academies at different schools, one of the things that has always captured those students' attention is to realize how that comes sometimes when their parents are sitting there and their grandmothers with people at the front door and the back door looking for them. They just can't imagine that they're using those as hideouts. But just share a little bit about the investigative process.
A lot of times we were tasked with, I'm in charge of the violent crime response team, one of the sergeants here at Tallahassee Police Department. We're tasked with basically trying to get guns off the street, and we work with hand in hand with our different divisions within the police department. So our special victims unit, Violent Crimes Unit, and also with the U.S. Marshals Task Force as well. A lot of times, like you said, a lot of people don't even know that they have those warrants because of technology. Technology stems a lot that we do. And also with tips that we get, a lot of times it's either drug dealers telling on other drug dealers because they want to put them out of business because they're in their territory, or a subject might have made their girlfriend or significant other upset about something, and they'll come to us and say, "Hey, you know, Johnny T has a pound of marijuana that he keeps in the back room, and I know he's going to get another shipment in next week." We know that there is a huge correlation between guns and drugs, and more likely than not, if you find a gun, you're going to find drugs there, and if you find drugs, vice versa. There is a process that we go through as far as we don't just make this right. We don't just go out and just say we're going to arrest so and so. We always say most of the time, normally when an officer asks you a question, we already know the answer to it, and also we have a lot of information that we gather from the public. The public gives us, we have been able to solve a lot of crime in Tallahassee because of the public. When I was a public information officer, I always tell the media, I was like, hey, you know, instead of always talking about the bad that's going on, talk about the good that we're doing as far as solving these crimes. We've always been in the high 90 percentile of solving our homicides and whatnot. Again, it goes back to what Judge Miller was saying, it's just a company that you keep. Just guilty by association sometimes. I know there was a murder that happened, I believe, at High and Old Bainbridge Road. The subjects went to actually go rob someone, and their friend they were with got killed. They were charged with the murder of their friend, and they didn't shoot their friend. Because their friend died during that murder, they were charged with it. So it's a lot of factors that goes into what's going on now. But I think a lot of our young people here don't have guidance. Some people may make the argument of, well, you know, they come from a single family home. Some of these people that we're dealing with do not come from single family homes. There's also, I think, there's a lot of accountability that goes on both parts. For instance, we had a 12-year-old that was in a stolen car at 2:30 in the morning. We called the parent, tell them, hey, you know, this juvenile, we're required by law and policy to let you know that we've got your son and that you need to be present if you can before we start questioning. She says, oh, just let me know when you're done. Call me when you're done. I'll come pick him up. Looking back at it, I'm 40 years old, born in 82. If I was out past street light, or let alone 2 o'clock in the morning, police calling my parents, they're coming straight down there, probably going to beat my behind right in front of the cops. But that's the mentality that we're dealing with now with parents. They don't care. Kids also know the system. When they're arrested and taken to a juvenile detention center, we had one young man tell one of the officers, I'm going to have a juice box and some chips, and my mom will be here to pick me up before you finish your paperwork. They also know that depending on what crime they do, it holds a certain amount of points. So if I steal a candy bar, if I take this pen or whatnot, or phone, I know I'm not going to get a lot of time or even get locked up that night. Now, versus a murder, something like that, that's totally different. But they know what they can do and how many times they can do it because there is no accountability for them, and there is sometimes no repercussions. The parent, it falls on the parent. So we really need. It starts when they're young, so a lot of the fraternities and sororities organizations that we have to kind of curtail them from doing that type of activity, just let them know there's another outlet than doing crime, just hanging out, doing what everyone else is doing, and then you're guilty by association because you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we've seen here in Tallahassee, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, you can use life.
Exactly. We appreciate you sharing that with us. I know I want to put Dr. Bryant in. I know that she's running between meetings and trying to give us some time. Dr. Bryant, please share some of your thoughts about the whole process of what we're doing and trying to do.
Hey, thank you very much, Coach, for having me on. And let me first apologize because I am in 2 meetings at one time. which unfortunately appears to be the norm for me. But you all probably are just like me. If Mickey asks you to do something, you're gonna do it. So here I am. So this whole topic of gun violence in our community is near and dear to my heart, because over the last 5-10 years, especially when I served on the city commission, it was one of the priorities with regards to what can we do to, in many instances, stabilize our communities as it relates to students, young people who really starting in elementary through middle through high school, who for many reasons find themselves in situations where their only way out in their way of thinking is to use a gun. I can remember back in the day that boys and would fight, and whoever wins, that's it, and you go on and brag on that. Now it seems that we have bragging rights on if we in fact injured someone and got away with it. So I think that this is definitely a major issue in our community, not just here in Tallahassee, but across the state and nation, where, and unfortunately, disproportionately, we're talking about young African Americans. So as a community, I think that we need to come together. There are many programs that are funded through many sources, but funded to the degree that only a part of a solution can be implemented. And the challenge is, how do we bring together really the various entities in some type of collaborative that will help us to put money in situations that will influence outcomes. So I'll just say that and almost drop it off right there, because I think that that's going to be so critical as we move into our future of bringing organizations, school system, community, businesses, parents, and young people, because they too have ideas about how what some solutions are. We need not leave them out of this equation. So if we can get some hearts and minds to get stayed on this entire concept of decreasing gun violence within our community in the weeks, months, years to come, hopefully we will see a decrease rather than a continual increase in gun violence. So those are my thoughts. I do apologize for having to leave, but I'm sure I'll get a chance again to be voluntold that I will be on another one of these panels.
Voluntold, I appreciate that.
but if there's a question for me, Mickey, especially from any of the other panelists, before I leave, I am more than willing and happy to respond.
Anybody have a question for Dr. Elaine Bryant?
Very good.
So before anybody changes their mind, you'll take your exit. We appreciate
Yeah. You know, I would not exit unless I had to. So
I absolutely know that 160%.
All right. Very good. All right.
Coach,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Coach,
Coach.
You're muted. To be transparent, I speak a lot with Coach Desir. We've gone and we've talked to the young men on her team and at different times. And we actually started doing high school basketball last year because we had stopped with COVID, but we started doing it because of an opportunity we had, a request we had to go talk to Coach Desir's young men. And they kind of put some pressure on us to come back and make FAMU DRS the first game for us to come back. So we weren't really equipped and ready mentally to do it. But her young men were so persuasive. And we went back, and as a result, we've kind of monitored them a lot. And Coach Desir and I talked, and I think Coach Tillman, I think you met on some of our earlier meetings that we had. And your mentoring program was one that she asked about because she wanted to provide some mentors for the young men on her team like you did at Thomasville High. Coach Desir, again, would think, a lot of times people don't get involved with situations until it hits close to home. And then when it hits close to home, it gets your attention. Well, a lot of times we have to act before it hits home, before to get involved so it doesn't hit home. Coach Jazir, what would you like to share with us?
You pretty much hit it right on the head. You don't know how it truly affects you until it hits in your own backyard. And unfortunately, for us in our program, in our school, I had one of my former players to be killed doing something that he loved. He was out there on the basketball court. And so that really touches home when you lose someone. You see it on TV all the time. You read it on the news. You hear other people having their own sidebar conversations about something happening every day. If it's not every day, it's every second, every minute, every hour. And you just continuously try to pray and ask that we can have some type of guidance to try to steer our people back in the right direction. And we always have all these questions and trying to figure out what can we do. And forums and platforms like this is really good to have. And then when you have them, you just can't have them. You just can't stop there. It has to be a continuation. It has to be educated for everybody to have. I've heard others say in reference about single parent homes, and even with having both parents in the home, it still doesn't resonate there. And that's the big question that we're all trying to figure out. How can we change the tide of them feeling like they have to utilize a weapon to resolve their issues? The communication is a big issue where I tell my guys now, y'all turn your phones off when you come in the study hall. It's for study hall. Y'all got to learn how to talk. Y'all don't know how to communicate to one another. Y'all always text and whatnot. And those sort of things lead to what we have now, because you cannot tell what somebody is saying in their text. Explanation points. Oh, you mad at me. Now we got a problem. Or you're trying to say something through the text that you don't say in person. Where if I'm talking to you right now, you can say, okay, why you sounding like that way? What's the problem? What's going on? We don't know how to communicate and sit down and talk. So when it hits home, it really hurts. And then now you're saying, what can we do? What can we do to not only just touch the guys here, but have the guys touch the other guys and females? Because it's not just hitting males, it's hitting females as well. So we're all being affected, and hopefully it doesn't have to say to hit home for others that are watching this. They can step out and say, let's try to do something before it actually comes into your own backyard. And that's no different from what they were saying with COVID. They were trying to find solutions. They really didn't want to rush on it until it hit in their own backyard. So now we're talking about gun violence, which is on the rise. So we just all need to come together before it actually hits you in your home.
Coach, how are you handling? I know you have it's a funeral coming up this weekend. How are you handling it?
To be frank, the first week, because so much stuff has been going on, last week I had a total of probably about 19 hours of sleep. I know that's not good with everything that's going on. It's just seemed like a snowball effect. But my main thing was to make sure that my guys who were like a family with him knew that they had the support. So I would be up at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, because the young gentlemen that were with him, they're traumatized. And for them to hear, my voice, let them know, hey, I got your support. I'll pray with you on the phone. One kid, he said, Coach, every time I close my eyes, all I hear is gunshots ringing in my ear. And I said, well, let's pray. Let's ask the Lord to give you the peace that you need to remove those sounds out of your head. So, it's going to be tough. I spoke to them actually yesterday. I saw quite a few of them at our game yesterday, and it was good to see them. I gave every last one of them a hug. If anybody knows me, I don't hug like that, especially until you graduate. But I gave them a big hug and embraced them and let them know that your family is still here. We will always be family. As we say, family, we will always be a family. But we're going to get through this with strength and prayer, and just having them to understand that I know you want to have revenge, but it's not for you to do. The Lord will take care of everything. And we always have to understand that God does everything for a reason. In the flesh, we don't agree with it, but in the spirit, we have to know that he's trying to tell us something. Now, what that something is, that's what we're all here to try to to try to figure out. But we're gonna be strong.
Our prayers are with you. Anybody have anything they'd like to say to Coach? Okay, another with us from Godby, the lead man. He's had a number of situations he's had to deal with. And one thing I know in doing the sports is that Mr. Cole is at every game. He's at every game. You know, a principal's job in our community goes 24/7, it seems. And he's there, he's watching the game, but he's also watching the crowd, he's watching his teams, he's always watching to make sure that it's a safe environment. And I know this for myself because I see it. Sometimes we speak, sometimes he's so busy, I'm like, he might see something, so I don't want to distract him from what he's watching. And we've had him on our INSiiGHTS Magazine before, but I appreciate him and what he does in the community. I met him at our church when he came over and spoke to us in Bible study one summer and spoke to the students. And he's always been this way. Coach, you experienced what Coach Desir has experienced, and you've experienced it a lot. Share with us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. I want to tell Coach Desir I appreciate how beautiful she articulated her points. I can't. It's tough to do what we do, to invest the way we invest into our kids, into our student learning community, and to see them fall off in the way of gun violence. In the 6 years that I have been at Godby High School, I've lost, double-digit kids over the years, and it doesn't get any easier each time. Even when I was at NIMS, one of the things that I would pray for every weekend, Sunday particularly, as I was getting ready to come back into work on Monday, that I didn't lose any kids. And that's a strange prayer for any principal, but because of what was happening, especially during those busy times, homecoming and various things like Be Out Day and those kinds of, festive events in the community, it's tough. So I would always pray that all of my kids, every last one of them, particularly my young Black males, get back to us on Monday morning safely. I extend the same prayer here at Godby High School, and I know God's listening, and I know God's answering. But we have lost some, and it's been tough each and every time. The young man that Coach Desir mentioned, he was a Godby student in 9th grade, so I knew him. He was a Griffin student, and what it hurts me is that I was an assistant principal at NIMS Middle School when his dad was there. So it hurts. There's a lot of hurt there for me. It's a lot of pain, angst, all the emotions that you could can try to come up with, or the vocabulary rather that you can try to come up with. It's all swelling in our community, and in me personally. Social media is the devil. I say that a lot at parent meetings. I don't like it. I don't necessarily use it, but it is the way of the world, and so I've adjusted. But for young people, it is the devil. It really is. And again, Dion, Coach mentioned it just a little while ago. But you just don't. Kids tend to take things wrong, and they don't understand the tenor in which something is being communicated to them. So instead of just saying, "Oh, okay," they want to take it to the negative level. So it's tough. Parents, we beg parents to be involved early. The officer mentioned, at 2:00, some kids out there at 2:00. Why? Why are they not home? Why are they not home? Maybe sleeping or watching TV, but home in the safe confines of their home. and their families, mom and dad. So it's been a tough 6 years, but we're plugging along. And to speak to your point, Coach, I am at everything. I try to be at everything. We have a soccer game happening right outside now. So as soon as I get done with this, I'm going to try to grab a peek at the soccer game because I haven't done much soccer this year. But in terms of this, the reason why we're gathered here, we're going to keep plugging along. We're going to keep trying. We're going to keep praying for our kids with the kids that they allow us to, and to hope they get them in a better mind space so they can make better decisions here locally. And so when they leave here, they can maybe think about some of the conversations. So the decisions that they may think about making, they can back away from those decisions and make better decisions, or just walk away from a situation altogether.
Principal Cole, I cannot fathom what you're going through or what Coach Desir is going through. My wife and I had 3 girls who came through the Leon County system and were raised here. And when they got to a certain age, we almost grimaced every time something would happen on television, because it ended up being somebody that was a friend of the families or a friend of theirs, or something that happened. And I can't imagine having a team and then each year 10 to 15, and they go up, and you having scores of students under you from middle school up. You have a whole community that has your fingerprint on it. It's just, and somebody, somebody in almost every good and bad situation, and it has to take a piece of your heart. And, we appreciate you being here. We really do. Dr. Bryant, you have the same type of thing going in Thomasville City Schools. You're a man who's active in the community, a man who's really concerned about our students, and in trying to do change in your environment is not easy to do, but we know that for a fact. But please share some of your thoughts with what you're hearing and what's going on in Thomasville, because it's right up the road. Those, we all together here.
Absolutely. So, excuse me. Thank you again, Coach Clayton, for the invitation. And I have unique ties to Tallahassee. I think, as was mentioned earlier, I actually am a graduate of Leon High School, 1991. And so, that is home. My parents still live there. I have a brother or 2 brothers and their respective wives and children that are there. So to that end, as I'm listening to everyone, and in the role of superintendent of a school district with roughly 2,800 kids, 65% of them African-American, roughly the other 35% Caucasian, where my mind is spinning, is around how can we begin to talk about the root causes of why kids have moved towards gun violence. I think we're all sitting seemingly, I'm doing a little guessing. I don't have any hair, so age range. But my point is that I'm big on root causes, because I think sometimes, and especially in public education, we can deal with the symptoms of whatever the issue is, but until we really dig down to say, for example, why are our kids feeling this, for lack of better words, attraction, or this kind of almost admiration of the use of guns? And again, I think several panelists have already alluded to, back in the day, you're on the playground or playing football, basketball, whatever. If there was a skirmish, it was some hands that were thrown, but it typically was not this almost a default now with our younger generation to say, okay, I need to find a weapon, or I need to go get my friend's weapon, or whatever the case might be. So what I would say really is I would challenge our panel, and I think as Pastor Elwood referenced earlier, as we start thinking about strategic steps, what might be those root causes, and how do we, I think as we was shared earlier too, really hear from our children. Here's my perspective on that. They are different than we were when we were coming up at that age. And I know we kind of hear that term loosely said, different, but from what my experience has been in working in not only Thomasville City Schools, spending 21 years in the metro Atlanta area, and 2 or 3 school districts there. I just think now more than ever, when you think about a kindergartner who is 5 years old, and I heard a recent panelist say in another training I was in, 65% of the jobs that will be created in 2035 have not been created yet. And I'll tell you why I believe that's significant to our conversation tonight. That means our current kindergartners 13 years from now will be those graduates from high school in 2035, which means it's beginning for us to think differently on how we not only educate, but I think as several panelists have said as well, how we communicate with our children. They are digital natives. You know, I think Principal Cole said, you know, not having that presence on social media. I don't either. The only thing I'm on social media is Twitter, and it's specifically for Thomasville City Schools. I'm tweeting about what's happening in the school district. But when we I believe when we recognize that that's all our children know. A 5-year-old right now, my niece who's 7 and in 2nd grade in one of the local elementary schools there in Leon County, you know, that's all she's aware of. And so I do think, and I'll conclude my statement with this, the challenge for us to get out ahead of it, like it was with that analogy of a Blockbuster. You know, I think we can all remember Blockbuster Video, and you know, we go pick our videos up, and someone came along to that CEO and sometimes said, "Hey, we need to. Have you ever heard of streaming?" But they didn't respond. They didn't pivot. They didn't change. They felt like they had the marketplace locked down, and now we don't even know about a Blockbuster, let alone the children that are coming along. And so I just use that, Coach Clayton, to say I do believe we need to tap into the root cause. Why are our kids having this affection and affinity towards resolving issues, or what they believe to be resolving issues, with the use of guns? And I think to that end, that will begin to put us in a position where we can have some definitive strategies that can move us towards truly resolving it. Because I would caution us from putting time, energy, resources, and so forth in the symptoms of the issue. We got to get to the root cause.
Oh, that's well said. And I have a question I want to ask Sergeant Damon Miller. As we hear people talk about the affinity for guns, and what is your thought, since you deal with this on a day-to-day, everyday basis? You've had to see this shift and change. What is your thought on
it? Had to move rooms here. Got guys coming in. I believe you react to what you see, and you emulate what you see. I have my son is 9 and my daughter's 12. So if my son sees me doing push-ups, he wants to get down and do push-ups as well. He sees me playing video games, he wants to do it as well. He sees stuff on TV, he hears someone say something, he's going to do it. That's just a natural reaction. Unfortunately, a lot of the music videos and everything we see on TV is glorified in these. Gone are the days where you just see stuff on, BET or MTV. They have, with the technology, they're able to stream, and people post videos on Facebook, TikTok, and everything else, and everyone has guns. It's like a badge of honor. Also, when we stop people, we ask them, "Hey, why do you have this gun? Well, I don't want anyone to rob me." Well, or why did you shoot so-and-so? Well, he said something on social media about my people, so I was coming up here. There was a shooting at Cascades Park, and there was boyfriend and girlfriend. Actually, there was a girl and a guy, boy and a girl, walking in the park, and someone screamed that they were at the park. Person drove from Bainbridge because this guy was with his girl and just decided to shoot at him because he was upset. It seems like almost every instance, there's always a different reason, but really and truly, it's it's a lack of having a respect of life in person and just a change of heart. Like I said, no one wants to fight it out anymore. They just want to shoot and be done with it. But I don't think no one really understands the true hurt that you cause when you pull that trigger. Not just affecting that person's family, but other people, just like Coach. Coach is affected by, or both coaches are affected by those that they've lost, they've seen and nurtured. That's another person that can't grow up to graduate or provide grandchildren for their parents. There's always, and people want to politicize it or whatnot, as far as, it shouldn't have this, shouldn't have that. And then people make the argument, well, guns don't kill people, people kill people. I hate to say it, I have a feeling that it's just going to continue, especially with the access to guns. And us as a police department, we pray and we also admonish everyone, lock your guns up. People leave their cars unlocked. The statistics have shown here in Tallahassee, a lot of the guns that these kids are getting access to are left in cars. Now, yes, it is your right to own a gun and have a concealed weapons license, but it's also a responsibility, and it goes back to accountability of making sure that your weapon is not accessible to someone else, let alone a child. It's just a lot of things, and I always, the city has, I guess, this task force, I guess, with different groups coming together. But, you kind of sit back and think and say, it kind of feels as if, we're preaching to the choir. We actually need to get out there and talk to kids and show them. I'm a part of NOBLE, National Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and we have this thing called Law in Your Community. So we go out because we understand that you have to get them while they're young, right? So we go out to the middle schools and we have one-on-one conversations with them. We tell them the dangers of doing drugs and having guns. We actually put them in scenarios of what should happen if you come in contact with a law enforcement officer. Because you have to understand, sometimes the first time they see a law enforcement officer, sometimes it's a negative sense. So they don't know how to react. They're only going by what their people see, what they say. When the police are bad, don't talk to 5 or don't talk to 12. So a lot of times when we stop people, there's guns in the car, but you're giving rides to your friends, but you don't know that your friend has a gun in the car. And then that person sticks the gun up under your seat. Now you're looking, whose gun is it? You're saying you don't know, and it's actually not yours, but it's your friend's gun. And he said, no, I ain't my gun, that's his gun. So now the finger point going back and forth. So now you got something on your record going forward. And I tell, especially the high school people, I'm like, hey, you do realize if you get a felony, the financial aid that you're trying to get into school, trying to get a job, you have to check that box. And I think because a lot of times when they feel like, well, I'm just a juvenile, my work is going to be wiped clean or I become adult. No, it does not. It follows you and it carries on. There's a subject that we arrested the other day. I believe he was 20 years old, but he had a gun charge and he was a juvenile, but that carries over for 5 years from that. Because he actually tried to go and purchase a gun, but he couldn't purchase a gun because you had that charge back in juvenile. People just think automatically, I'm crystal clean is like a baptism when you turn 18. That's not the case. So, we have to continue to try to go out and talk with them. And a lot of times we keep seeing the same people being arrested, especially young people. And it's just, when we just say, hey, that's it. And they cry in your back seat. And then all of a sudden you look up in the booking report and 2 weeks later, they're there again. And y'all say, hey, here's my card. Let me know if you want to do something to get a job or whatnot. I noticed that the Commissioner Richardson, I can get you and try to get your job or whatever. I know people in the community, I can try to get your job, washing cars, doing something positive other than resulting to drugs and guns. But it's just, and I think a lot of people don't really understand until you get out there. I always implore people, hey, do a ride along with it. You can actually see what's going on. And I think you can talk about it all day long, but until you actually see it, and until you actually, you're holding a child that's dead or a young person that's dead, and then we have to go and make that phone call or knock on that door and tell the parent, hey, your child's gone. And they're just expecting, they're just supposed to go to the store and come back. They went and did a drug deal going bad. So and as a parent, I don't even want my child watching the news. He's 9. He's been exposed to so much on the news and everything, and he should be having fun, but he's asking, worried about, him getting shot at school. And, why do we have a guardian? I'm a guardian at a, think about that. We have to have police officers at schools, in elementary schools, because of the dangers of guns. And elementary school students are bringing guns to school. Why? Because they're emulating, seeing what they see on TV and or their friends and everyone else. So, I mean, I'm praying and hoping that it will change. But again, I always tell people, they say, well, what are you doing to change? I was like, I filled out my application to come to the police department because there's not a lot of people that look like me that's in uniform. So if we try to get young people to be police officers and show the good about police officers, maybe they can grow up to be police officers. And then the cycle keeps continuing on and on and on. If you think about it, the Army has done a magnificent job of trying to get people in the military, not just Army, so the military period. How, Damon? Through JROTC. They understand if you get them young, most likely than not, they'll probably continue to keep on going on. So we have police auxiliaries and everyone else. But I even asked our people here a couple years ago, I said, how many people are in our police auxiliary that go to FAMU High, my alma mater, go to Godby, or go to Ricketts? Most of them are in Lincoln, Leon, and Charles. And what's the correlation between those three? Most predominantly white. So we want more minorities in law enforcement, but we're not getting them while they're young. So, I mean, it hit home to me because I'm from Tallahassee, and as a police officer, and I see both sides of how everything is. And I'm always stuck in the middle. Black lives matter, blue lives matter. Well, you're with the establishment. You don't understand how we feel. I do. And I have to worry about if my child's going to come home and after school. So, I mean, I just
Sergeant Miller,
wish there was appeal.
You said something that I want everybody on the panel, if you're not aware of it, that Noble program. I witnessed that at New Mount Zion during the summer school session that, when we were there for a week where Principal Cole came. And isn't that where you kind of interact with the students and take them through some role-playing situations and things like that?
Yes, sir. I think
it was.
You can see on their faces that they're just, because basically we act out what we've been through with citizens. And they really say, that's how people treat y'all? Like, yes. And I think through live PD and everything else, I think we actually did it at Ricketts as well. I think it was a collection of a lot of other people, but some Noble people were there along with the attorney's office and the sheriff's office. But I think that program has actually gotten us some national recognition from Noble. And we've actually traveled out of town with that program. And I think we just continue doing that to be good.
Stop you a minute, because what I want people to know is how they can get in touch with somebody at the police department to have that program come to their place, to their school, to their activity, because in the church, when they did that, the eyes of the students, I wish I had cameras, not for what you did, but for the reactions of the students who were spellbound with it. And it was really, I saw it firsthand, and I wanted to make sure that I said that. But if there's a way that you can contact, if you let me know, I can actually put it down at the bottom of the show so that people can follow up and get in touch with you or whoever does that, because it's an excellent program, and I've seen it open up the eyes.
Sir. Deputy Chief Time Bryan Smith is our local chapter president here, and she kind of spearheads that. I can give you a number, we can put it in the chat, but of course you can always call 850-891-4200 and ask for Deputy Chief Bryan Smith, and we'll be sure to get you on the list and the schedule. Because that's how busy we are with that program.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very, very important information for us there.
Yes, sir.
Coach Tillman, I know that you're kind of in charge or have the responsibility of some of the security and things at Thomasville City Schools. and you kind of doing some different things there. Tell people a little bit about what's going on with Thomasville City Schools, so perhaps some other people can pick up from it.
I think, yeah, and thank you for having me, Coach. I appreciate you all for including me in the conversation. But yeah, we are doing a lot of things for safety and security wise, implementing strategics, which is a crisis alert system that we're putting in, actually completely installing it today. And then some other things that will help our educational community feel safe. But what I want to talk about not only are those things, but some of the things that we really kind of push for our principals and our teachers and some of those people to be aware of. And so, and in my short tenure in this position, I've noticed throughout the different training sessions I've come across is that a lot of the kids that are having these crimes or doing these crimes in school or outside of schools are those kids that are not really so much active. And so what I coined them as identifying the ghost in your building. And what I mean by identifying the ghost is you got that kid that walks into school, got his hood on his head, got his backpack on, but he doesn't say good morning. Nobody speaks to him. The kid goes and sits down at the table by himself and he eats. And every time you turn around, the kid seems to be angry. And so that's a ghost. Nobody knows him, not participating in any extracurricular activity. That kid is, you don't know whether that kid had a good night. You don't know whether that kid saw his dad or his mom the night before. You just don't know because you're not communicating with that kid. And sometimes it's those kids that have decent clothes on. Don't necessarily mean the kids that are look the part, but it could be kids that have a two-parent home that are still considered to be ghosts, like they might not think that they're relevant. So I try to encourage our staff to try to identify those ghosts in our building so that they can create conversation. And that's a cultural move, that you want to create conversations with those kids and try to let them know that, hey, if you do have some issues going on, feel free to come talk to Coach Tillman. A good morning, you don't pay anything for a good morning or how you do it. It's good to see you here. And those kind of things kind of make kids feel welcome, and that'll open them up to want to talk to you when they have a stressful situation. The other thing that I want to kind of elaborate on is something that everybody's kind of touched on, but nobody just really said it. Our kids today has an issue with conflict and resolution. We don't know how to handle conflict, and we definitely don't know how to resolve it. Back in the day, we all said back in the day, we had a conflict with a kid, we'd stand outside. If I had a friend, me and my best friend now, we started out as a fight. And me and him live next door to each other. He took my ball. You're going to give me my ball back, and run in the house and tell my dad, and my dad said, no, you need to go out there and get your stuff. So I go out there and we fight for it. And so that's what we did, but we became best friends. But today it's not like that. So today, if that same scenario, that kid runs in the house and tell his parents come out, and they want to make sure that kid that took the ball understands that you don't bother my child's stuff. And so the parents are actually modeling the negative behavior that is exemplified through the kid. So when the kid get old enough, he does the same exact thing. So it's conflict and resolution. We don't know how to talk to each other. We don't know if I got a conflict with you, I'm going to post it. I'm going to send it on Twitter. I'm going to put you on social media. I'm going to take your picture, try to demean you and those kind of things. And so I think that what our conversation should be a lot of times is identifying those kids that are not involved in any extracurricular activity within your schools. Get them in some type of mentoring program, and also let them know that they're welcome. And then this next step is to teach these kids how to conflict and resolution. And what I mean by that is teach them that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay that you and I have a disagreement, and it's okay that we can still get along. We can agree to disagree. It doesn't always have to be my way. And so I see that dealing with my own kids, helping them to understand that, everything don't always go your way. And so, and it starts out in Little League, You know, now you play little league sports, everybody get a trophy, everybody get a certificate for participation. But in real life, it doesn't happen like that. Sometimes the answer is no. And sometimes the answer is yes, but sometimes a lot of times for us in our community, the answer is no. So what happens when it's no? What happens then? I did this one thing. I showed it to a kid the other day talking about basketball, and I gave him this scenario. I asked him, I said, how do you work your whole life? You started wanting to play basketball when you was in the third grade. And now you get to a 12th grader and you decide that you don't want to do it no more. How does a person work their whole life to get to a point where they see their goal and then all of a sudden they decide they don't want to do it? How do a player steals the basketball and then goes to the other end of the court and miss the layup? I don't understand that. I don't understand how you work so hard for something, and then when you see yourself about to receive your goal, then you say you don't want it. So how does that fit into what we're talking about? I got a kid that's been in the school building, that's been in my school system since kindergarten. How do you work so hard to get to be a 12th grader or 11th grader, and then you come up and you finna do something stupid so that you can't graduate? How do you do all of that work, and now you finna get ready to change your parents' life by graduating from school, going to college? You have all these opportunities, but all of a sudden you're gonna do something stupid within 30 minutes, and that's basically saying you don't want it no more. Those are the type of situations that we have to understand, and we have to teach our kids that how do we handle those situations. Coach, she's been in it. She's seen kids go down, miss a layup or miss a free throw. It's a tie ball game. 5 seconds left. Kid, you call a play. The kid get 5, go to the free throw line. He missed the shot. All right, so we down 1. He missed the second shot. Buzzer goes off. We lose. Okay, are you a winner or a loser because you missed the free throw? So these are life situations. So, and that's how I look at it. I just look at it that, no, you're a winner because you attempted to do what I asked you to do. It's not the results that make you a winner. It's the effort that makes you a winner. And so that's what I would like to see us do, kind of move toward. That's what my mentoring program was about, is teaching kids how to conflict and resolute, teaching kids how to get along, how to be sociable, how to say yes, sir, no, sir, no, ma'am, yes, ma'am, let me get that door for you. So those are the type of soft skills that our kids don't have today.
Well, I appreciate what you said about the ghost in the building, and I'm going to ask Principal Cole about that, the ghost in the building and conflict resolution. But you also had another key, which is what INSiiGHTS is trying to do, that a lot of times we can use sports as a way to try to reach these students to alter or change their behavior. It's just like listening to family. I mean, you try to keep your children around people who say the same thing that you say. Your son or daughter may hear it from somebody else, and they'll act like it's the first time in their life they heard it. And you raised them with that principle, and you just look at them like, you'll say, "Well, hadn't I been telling them that the whole time?" And it just sinks in. So it's one of those things. But I mean, you gave us something there that I really, really do appreciate as we move forward. But I also wanted to ask Principal Cole, what did you think about what you've heard and some of that?
Well, let me speak to this one point first. Each year we have a discipline assemblies. Really, we talk about discipline, but there are assemblies just to kind of get kids acclimated to high school. During the senior assembly, we primarily talk senior stuff, but we really hone in on the 9th graders and sometimes the 10th graders as well. And one of the things that I say specifically, I welcome them, I tell them who I am, what my role is for them. My goal is for them to be successful, but they play a huge part in that. But I beg them, I say, don't let 4 years go away and you haven't participated in something at the high school level. And I say that again, I say, because 4 years will erase itself pretty quickly. And you are your senior year, and you're in your second semester of your senior year, you're getting ready to hopefully graduate and you haven't done anything. You haven't been part of the chess team or basketball. You haven't tried to do anything. And I said, allow yourself to be a part of something, because that's going to help. Being connected with an organization, having teammates, struggling and striving and suffering with a group of individuals for the greater good. That's what it's all about. And I think what a lot of us have in common here, and I can't speak for everybody on the panel, we were all coaches, right? I coached at Rickards High School for a significant amount of time, basketball, swimming, oddly enough, and a couple of other sports. So being a part of something will help. I'm Godby's biggest recruiter, irrespective of the sport, whether it's again swimming, volleyball. If I see a kid that's going to fit in their body dynamics, may play well to a sport, I'm going to go, hey, have you thought about this? Because that's going to help take their mind off maybe positive, potentially something negative, and bring it into something positive. The ghosts in the building, obviously you have to just be mindful and watchful of any students that may not necessarily fall in line or assimilate with a group, and try to connect with them in the best way you know how. So the teachers are aware of those kinds of personalities, and so they're doing their due diligence. But we have an extensive non-instructional staff that are always trying to make connection with kids. So we're not going to be potentially caught by surprise with any kind of inappropriate behavior. Not that it's an infallible way of looking at things, but we are cognizant of those kind of individuals, but we want to try to connect with them as much as we can, so they can feel a part of something versus feeling like they're not connected with anything at all.
Thank you. You made a point there about coaches. I think almost everybody on this panel at some point either participated in a sport or coached a sport.
Yes. And one thing I wanted to say this earlier when Coach Tillman was also, one of the things that makes it a huge challenge at the middle and high school level is gangs, right? That's something that we just have to monitor very, very closely all the time. And some of it's one thing if student A, male student, and student B have a situation, right? But oftentimes there's a connection on both sides. So now whoever they're, oftentimes they end up bringing others in, and those others are oftentimes part of gangs, and that's where you have these issues that occur in the evenings on weekends, where kids or young adults, oftentimes innocent bystanders, are losing their lives. Gang affiliation, gang involvement is a huge thing, and that's something we always keep our big fat thumbs on the pulse, so we can make sure we keep it safe and orderly here. But even though it's safe and orderly here, it may not be safe and orderly in the streets, which is often the byproduct.
That's key, which is often the byproduct. It's so many pearls of wisdom and nuggets of information that's being shared in this panel. And I have a person that has actually, like a lot of us have, been involved with this at a pretty high level. And Coach, I have Coach Hankerson here. He's been walking around everywhere, so every time I got ready to put him on, he was doing something else. But now, Coach Hankerson, share some of what you deal with. You're a Rickards instructor, former athletic director, teaching class, involved with the students a lot. A son who just graduated from Godby, a daughter still in the system. You get a chance to see and experience a lot, and you've always been an observant fella, so you kind of know about the ghost in the building. But share some of your thoughts about what you've heard and what you're experiencing.
Yes, sir. Unlike the other panelists, I don't have the luxury of being at home by myself in a quiet place at all times. The two queen bees just came into the building, and so
we're gonna try to walking around.
Yeah, she's walking around, and we're gonna try to get through this. But I want to bring to the forefront the word accountability. And we just talked about this in our class today, one of our classes anyway. Our students have to understand how to be more accountable to themselves and to one another. And so that's something that is very important that a lot of our students are missing, unfortunately. That aspect of understanding accountability toward themselves and towards each other. So we want to try to continue to bring that point home to our students. And I won't belabor all of the points that were made because everyone was absolutely on target. But I do believe that word accountability is really important. We have to get our folks to understand that it's up to each one of us to take care of ourselves, but to also take care of each other. We talked about friendship. We talk about what friendship truly means and how we can all help one another. But the judge started the show by talking about being with the right people. And we also discussed being in the right places at the right times. Organized activities. Those things are very important, and we all understand that. Because I, like Principal Cole, also encourage students to get involved in some type of organized activities. But once you're involved in those activities, you need to be learning some important character aspects from those activities, not to just be involved in it, but to also learn some things about yourself and learn some things about life through those activities. Coach, I think the part that bothers me about the most recent event that we had in the city, it was basketball. And the park and places of that nature through sports, those are supposed to be our safe spaces. And those are supposed to be safe places. And so I think that really is what resonated with me and hit home, is that we couldn't have a group of young men and or women playing basketball in a safe space. And so we've got to come up with some type of ideas and continue some organized things throughout the city, in my opinion, to try to provide safe spaces for our young people to express themselves, to have a good time, and to be safe. And in addition to that, I think the final point that I'd like to make is as Coach Tillman talked about, the level of violence, not just gun violence, but violence in general. Our kids go from 0 to 60 really, really quick. And we've got to figure out how to get them to understand that they don't have to, it doesn't have to get to that point or to that level. And so I know that we've had a great time, and we talked with each other about some of the problems. And so now, obviously, it's time for us to find some solutions.
Coach Clayton, if you don't mind me saying, I've been hearing a lot of the panelists say, and one of the things that was resonating with me when I was growing up, it seems like we moved away from this. The church, whether I wanted to go or not, you're going. Prayer meeting, you're going. Wednesday night, my grandmother used to pull me. I want to sit home and watch TV. You're going. I don't know if we have that anymore. It seems like the numbers are getting smaller in the church to where they don't value that and bringing the Lord back to our children, because when they are receiving the Spirit, whether they understand or not, it's going to stay with them. When they say train up the child in the way they should go, when they get old, they will not depart from it. We're not having them in the church anymore. And so when the pandemic hit, it seems like everybody just been, I'm going to stay home. I'm good. And now all of a sudden we start seeing these things spiraling out of control. Not saying that it wasn't happening beforehand, but now it just seems like you look at the numbers when people going back in person, the numbers are small. Sunday school is getting small. The kids for the younger age, they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So that could also be a very big contribution to what is happening, because now we're pulling the kids away from the church and not teaching them the true values of how the Lord dealt with all the issues that we're dealing with now. It's in the book. And if people read from the beginning to the end, we're learning about everything that's happening now. So that's just my point. And I'll say enough. But I know we won't try to preach and be on the church, but we got to call it like it is.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else like to have a comment to make as we start to work towards closing?
Coach Clayton, the only additional word I would add to the mix, because I think it's indicative of what has been shared, is just relationship building. I do think a part of what Coach Tillman is referencing when we talk about finding the ghost, and we've talked about this in the executive cabinet and other places, of saying, how do we, from a school district perspective, make sure that every child is walking? There are 5 buildings here in Thomasville City, but how do we ensure that each one of those students are attached to somebody in the building? Because here's one thing I would put out there, and I think most, if not all of us, are educators or former educators. You know, it is difficult to manage. I kind of think back to Stephen Covey's work, that 80-20% rule. You know, we can only control 80%. I mean, there's 80% of what we can control. There's that 20%, i.e. when the kids go home or in the community, that we don't have a direct hand on. So that relationship building of saying, for example, the kindergartners who enrolled in our school district and started now about to finish the first semester, how do we as school districts be more purposeful, intentional about attaching ourselves to those children? So again, I think going back to this whole adage of catching them early, the officer said earlier, what does that look like? So again, by the time they go through elementary school, I'm a former elementary principal, you get the middle school, there's someone attached to them that, like Coach Tillman said, is intentional about saying, hello, Raymond, how are you doing today? You know, what happened at home? When we're not intentional and purposeful with those things, I do think that's where kids can fall prey to other groups, because they're trying to find a relationship. So where that was that discussion about gangs and so on and so forth. I mean, it's human nature for us to want to be attached to each other and to someone. You know, there's studies internationally about babies, you know, whether or not they're getting some interaction, some human interaction, and those who don't, and how that plays out over time. So the word I would add is just that, or words, relationship building. And how can we intentionally attach ourselves? And maybe that's the school building can be the conduit to say, you know, as we have volunteers and mentors and others come in the building, that if Raymond is the one, as Mr. Tillman referenced, my hoodie's on, I got my book bag, I don't really bother anybody, I sit and eat my breakfast, I go in and out of the school every day, but no one knows who I am. Because a part of coaching, I think, is that relationship. You know, I think that's why Coach Tillman referenced, you're going to start in 3rd grade and spend all this time where he's gotten to know those student athletes. But every child isn't a student athlete. You know, you have those kids who need to just have someone who cares enough about them to attach themselves to them. And like I said, I think that references back to my original statement of saying our children nowadays are different than where we were, because of the influx of social media, because of the inability to have the conflict resolution, as was mentioned. But a relationship, someone to tap you on your shoulder, and there's some kind of genuine, authentic interest in, from a child to an adult to a child, I think can do wonders. And that's a part of what we're looking at in Thomasville City Schools, to really just start to become more intentional and purposeful about that work. Because if we can touch the 2,800 here, then they can go out into the community and hopefully think twice about decisions that they make, because they know someone, they have a relationship with someone.
Those are true words. For me, in my spirit, I appreciate all of you, because it was something that was put on me to do what we're doing here today. Coach Tillman, you may have heard me say before in the past, my time is 4 or 5, 6 o'clock in the morning when God comes to me. And if I don't write down whatever he has laid on me, if I go back to sleep, when I get up in the morning, I won't remember any of it. So I keep my phone or a notepad, and my wife will say, "You got that light on again?" So after a while, she just kind of figured that was the price of us doing business. He was talking to me, and I was trying to follow what I was being told. And doing this with the platform that I have with INSiiGHTS, if I can't use it to help the community in some way, then there's no sense in me having it. It's all, I'm retired. So my daughters told me, say, "Daddy, you stay busier now than you did when you were working. You the busiest retired man I've ever seen." But it's kind of become my ministry and my way of giving back. So anything that we can do to try to help any of you to put together, we have people at our disposal to put together leadership academies that we've done all the way over to Brooks County, including the judges, lawyers, police officers, instructors. We use people from social media to teach our student athletes how to interview. I mean, we've done all the way down with Mr. Hankerson and all the way down to the middle school. And Sheriff McNeil told us that we had to get younger than that. He said, "You need to get them in elementary school." He said, "By the time we get them in middle school, it's really almost too late." I appreciate you taking the time. I really do. All of you have such a busy schedule, but to take your time to be a part of this panel. And Reverend Pastor Elwood had what he thought was a meeting, and then he said, "Man," he said, "I got the wrong day. I left rushing to go to a meeting, and it's the wrong day." He said, "I'm so confused." But I had wanted that component that you talked about, Dion, for him to speak on that. And as we move forward and try to establish a plan in some way, I just think, we need to, there's so many groups and organizations out there, we need to try to come together to find ways. And especially us with our students. I mean, it has to start with us, with our kids. We can't continue to wait on other people to do things for us. We have to be a little bit more aggressive to do it ourselves. And that's what my calling was in terms of reaching out to each one of you. And I have a heartfelt appreciation and thank you for each of you being a part of it. And all I can say is thank you, because it's something that we want to do. We're going to take pieces of this and put into our high school broadcasts. It will be our halftime show. We have done that before with interviews that we've had with Principal Cole, and we make it the halftime show. So we'll cut pieces of this, put in a halftime show, snippets in, so that while we have their attention watching a sporting event, we can make an attempt to resonate with a parent, a grandparent, a student, a faculty member, a teacher, somebody that they hear that something that they hear that might be able to help them navigate this very difficult time that we're all in. We tried to say love to 850. We need to show some love to each other. It's our community, and there are communities that are a lot closer than ours. And as a people, we have to become closer and stop being our own worst enemy. We don't have to worry about destruction from outside. We'll do it from within. And we have to take some steps towards trying to reconcile that. And each of you are doing it in your own way. And we wanted to highlight that and let people know what you're doing and your commitment to make it better. And as we said, until it hits home, sometimes you can almost ignore it until it hits home. And when it hit with Coach Desir, that was hitting home. And I just wanted to do something. So let me say, anything that we can do through this platform, consider it done. If you need us or need us to be able to get to somebody for you to do something that you want to do or implement, let us know. Each of you know how to reach me. And I thank you from my heart for each one of you taking the time to do this. I just thank you so much. Coach Desir, I know you. It's a difficult time right now. We're struggling. I'm not quite struggling as much as you, but I kind of feel your pain having been a coach and had some student athletes and some things to go through. And I appreciate Judge Miller, Dr. Bryant, Pastor Elwood. I appreciate everybody, you know. Rick, would you like to say anything?
You know, this has been very enlightening for me. Being a part of our fraternity and working with the Kappa League, we used to just do high school, but we moved down to middle school as well to include the middle school students to try to touch a younger age. But now I'm thinking maybe we have to go down even lower, because I don't know if we're doing enough. And hearing some of the plans, the conflicts and resolutions, and trying to find root causes of things that happen have really touched on me and listening to the story. So I thank you all, the panel, for bringing and enlightening me, and hopefully down here in Tampa I can help make a difference as well.
Well, one of the things is that there's so many fraternities and sororities that, you know, we all kind of get tagged with doing social things, but not much attention is given to the things that we do to help the communities. You know, they hear about the dances and the parties we do, but they don't hear about the different things we do with the young children that each organization tries to reach out to and reach and touch. And perhaps we aren't doing enough. Maybe we need to do some things together and reach out and bring all the different resources that we have, rather than it be about a particular fraternity or sorority, but almost Panhellenic, and getting everybody together to try to do something in a larger group. I think sometimes we look too much to see who gets the attention or the credit rather than just getting the job done. And all of us who coached and played know it's that we always had that unsung hero that does the small things that make the difference in being successful or not. They're the person that makes the extra pass. They're the person that takes out the blockers so somebody else can make the tackle. I mean, it's always somebody. You know, in your school system, you have instructors and teachers who work that you don't even see until you hear a student say something about that particular instructor, that they were the reason that they were able to do something. And you have other instructors that make sure what they do, you see. So is it about themselves or is it about the students? So, and it's the same thing that we have to do within our organizations to try to do something to try to help. I want you to know, again, I thank you and I appreciate you. We've gone over. I appreciate so many of you who still hung with us. We will send copies of it to you, but I want each of you to feel free to share it however you wish, because we want people to see what you have said and what your concerns are about the increasing gun violence within our community. We appreciate you all, and we thank you for being here. And I appreciate each of you so much. Coach Cole, I know I'm going to see you again at the next Gabby contest. I don't care what sport it is. I know I'm going to see you.
It don't matter what sport, I'll be there. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for the invitation, Coach. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad I was able to find some time to really be a part, and it's enlightened me, and it's made me want to kind of really try to figure out some things and be more personal with my approach.
We can all learn, but I appreciate you, Principal Cole. That's just the way you are. I have never reached out to you and you didn't meet me halfway, and we tried to do whatever we could. That
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that.
Everybody have a good night. It's been my pleasure meeting you.
Stay up to date with the latest latest from INSiiGHTS. Visit our website at INSiiGHTS.com. Two eyes in the middle. INSiiGHTS.
INSiiGHTS is a copyright of Mac4 Enterprises, a Florida corporation. This broadcast is produced under the exclusive ownership of Mac4 Enterprises and is the intellectual property and trademark of Mac4 Enterprises. Comments of the host and other individual speakers on INSiiGHTS represent their independent thoughts and representation.